Time.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We're a purpose before profit group that love helping, scaling, doing it. You need help, give us a call. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about all great things. As I always say, Wednesday's my favorite day of the week. I get to talk to incredible people, incredible companies, leaders in our ecosystem. And today we are going to be talking with Keck, the founder of Legal Sneakers. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Jade.
I am doing great, and I know we had a little talk beforehand. So just for you and your love of graffiti, I'm going to throw in a little celebration here. And
I love
woo, we're
it.
ready to go. We're ready to talk now.
There was a moment.
Wow.
Remember when you could? One time I was gesturing on a conference call and I went like this, and we were in a negotiation, and hearts flew up into the air. It was priceless. It actually, everyone calmed down.
Yeah, I remember that. And everyone's like, "How do you turn that off? We have to keep that. How does that go off? Everybody's doing it." You're like, "Yeah, giving this," and then boom, like
Yeah, thumbs up.
go.
Yeah, one of my colleagues texted me. He said, this is how you can shut that off," and then followed by a separate text, "if you want to."
Exactly right. Like we just definitely, I'm all for the thumbs up and the hearts. I'm good on that anyway. So, but I know we recently actually just met each other, and
Yeah.
I believe it was at the Future Summit, and obviously it was a great summit, and Josh put on a great event, and it was great, and I always believe, I've had a lot, different types of, Ozer's been on here and a different type of things. And we always talk about, how do we help entrepreneurs? How can we work entrepreneurs? Even our discussion beforehand was, money's an issue, things an issue. And it doesn't matter, money's always an issue. So we can always take that out of but what I would love to hear is, is your story. So I want to know, why you got into, the legal industry, a little bit of your background, and then maybe your journey into starting Legal Sneakers.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share that with you. Well, gosh, I mean, I think I started with an interest in going to law school to do international human rights, to be honest. And so I did a little bit of that. Spent some time in Latin America, which I loved. And but ultimately, I decided to come back to Canada. And a mentor of mine always said, "Karen, corporate law is the only law that makes dreams come true." And at the time, I was like, "Oh my goodness," that was hard to take. But it is about building. It is about building. And so I became a corporate lawyer, and over time, well, to be honest, one day, Jade, I put my feet up on my desk and I thought, what do I want to do now? Like, I've been in this for, I don't know, 7-8 years. What is it? And can I find something that sort of, it's not about human rights or development work, but is there something I can do here that gets a little closer to tapping into that? I used to do a lot of transactional work, which I enjoyed. But so I liked working with entrepreneurs. These were people who were brave, as far as I was concerned. They were introducing a new product or service into the market, generally trying to solve a problem, right, that they had identified. And I enjoyed working with them. I also gave me opportunity to kind of get a little bit more into the business, because I think to do law really well, if you understand whatever the business is that someone's working on, you can provide a better service. So anyway, I was working on a program, but I was at a large firm. It was a little bit tough to do the work the way I wanted to do the work, just because it's very expensive, right? And so anyway, eventually I started Legal Sneakers, and that was just intended to be a place that was specifically for startups, where they could come and it's been a learning experience for me. Basically we want to provide the same service that they would see at a big firm. That same quality, same dedication, that kind of thing. But at a much reduced rate. So the overhead's lower. As you can see, this office isn't as shiny as the one I might have been at before. But I'm still the same person, and we still do the same work. So yeah, so we started working with entrepreneurs, and I just enjoy it. You know, like I'm curious about what they're doing. So I enjoy learning about what the new technology is that they're working on, and being able to. I feel like I can still provide them with like good, solid legal support. That should be it should be a foundation for them. So
Yes.
yeah, that's kind of how it all happened.
Well, let's talk about like that. You know, you said that, I want to help. I want to be there. I want to give back. And that is all awesome, right? We all want to do that, and I think it's an important part of our ecosystem. So here you are coming out of, out of your job, and you're going to start your business, and you're going to be helping entrepreneurs, and you yourself are one, and starting up, and are a startup, and are helping. How is that type of a transition for you? Like, were you sitting there giving the same advice and like, well, okay, I obviously got my own legal, I'm good with that, but how did you relate to the founders, from what your experience is growing with people that might be even a little bit larger or even maybe smaller than you as a startup?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was interesting, right? Because it taught me all of a sudden I had to know about all these different areas, not just law, right? There was a time when I could just go and, I practiced law. That's what I did. So having an understanding of, okay, well, now I need to understand my accounting. Now I need to understand, how do you deal with social media? How do you, I didn't have a footprint forever, right? Like, because it was just new. So there was all these new areas. So you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. So that was one thing. And the other thing was learning how to pivot a little bit, right? Like, and I think I did it in a few ways. I did over time, trying to figure out what is it that people need and how can I provide services in a better way. And we tried different things. First, everyone just wanted forms to fill out that they could create their own documents. So we tried that, right? We were building these bots 7 years ago behind the scenes. One of my colleagues, I'm like, you got to figure out how to build a bot. I know you're a lawyer, but I think you're smart enough. Just figure it out. So anyway, so she did. And then we had these bots, but nobody, like, it didn't work. Let me put it that way. Because the people who were using them, they didn't have the legal knowledge to know how to answer the questions in a way that actually provided them a good outcome. So I was like, oh gosh, that's not really working. And yeah, is it faster? But it's actually taking more time because then we got to go back and ask them, are you sure about this? Are you sure about that? So that was a bit of a journey. The other thing was I used to work for really larger companies, right? And so we worked for legal teams. So the language I spoke had to shift because now I'm working for more entrepreneurs. And the entrepreneurs, they don't have the same, like, our lingo is a little bit different, and there was a style and a rhythm of work that we did. We used to put something in a document called NTD. It means note to draft. And the intention was you put a note to draft saying, here's a first cut, but there's a bunch of notes to draft with, they're just questions, right? Like questions or comments about what do you want to do? I need further instructions on this. So I would put those in and then send a document over. And in the old days, I would get it back with answers to the NTDs. But in the new world, no one would respond. Like, I'd send the document out and no one, I didn't mention it. I don't know if I didn't mention it. Probably not. It was just so normal. Anyway, and I would phone and be like, hey, did you have a chance to look at, and they're like, what document? Oh, I sent that over to the customer or whatever. I was like, oh, no. Like, there was some questions for you in there. So anyway, yeah, I've had to learn how to, who my customer is, what is it that they need, how do they communicate. So that was important to learn. And And the business model, same thing, like lots to learn. There's just lots to learn when you start up a business.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I'm talking with Karen, founder of Legal Sneakers. Their website is legalsneakers.com. Click on it in the chat to take you directly there. So let's talk about some of those learnings. Like, how are you able to take those learnings that you were having and the customers are telling you and apply them to your own business as you're going to grow?
Yeah, I mean, we just sort of did in the new year. We looked at, I sat down with my team and I was, to say, okay, how did we do? What do we need to do different? And they're like, you know what, we don't want to do all transactional work, but we kind of miss some of that transactional work. And so we went through a process of figuring out, and we're still working through it, to be honest, about what that could look like. But yeah, and so we kind of take a page out of our own clients' playbook too, to say, okay, well, how are we going to grow, right? Like, what does growth look like? And what does it look like for us? So yeah, I think we do it all the time. Actually, we learn from them all the time. Sitting on boards I've sat on boards. That's been a real learning experience too. Just to see how it's one thing to advise a board. It's another thing to sit on a board, and more akin to like an operational board, is instead of, people often distinguish between an operational board and a governance board. And I think in a lot of startups, you end up having more, you're in the weeds a bit more, for sure, and offering some guidance. So that's also been interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I bet. I mean, you're always learning, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
well, let's talk a little bit more about Legal Sneakers, and like yourself and what your company does. I mean, obviously, when people think legal, the umbrella is huge on what a startup needs, what it does, what you can advise with, what services you offer. So I want to, I know a lot of people sometimes when they get on a podcast, they don't like talking about themselves. They don't talk, but this is a time. This is a time to talk and brag and tell us what you do good. Tell us about yourself. Tell us, what makes you awesome. Why should we do business with Legal Sneakers? Right?
That's a great intro. That's a great intro.
Don't be Canadian. Right? Like, let's
right,
brag now.
Right. We're amazing over
We're
here.
bragging.
Well, I do think we're a little bit different. So there's some of us, somehow we're a little bit different, and we're a little bit the same, right? We were all trained in big firms.
Yeah.
And so we still kind of practice in the same way we would have practiced before. But I think so I break up the services a little bit different, much more from a practical perspective. So what do we do? Let me start there. So we're corporate lawyers, and when you start up a business, first you need some foundational pieces. You need to establish a company, you need to establish a governance structure, and sort of set up your legal structure so you know what that's going to look like. And then, okay, so we've got that set up. Great. And I really push for conversation. A lot of people want that fundamental structure set up, and they're just like, we need a USA or something like that, right? Like, do you have one of those? They're like, yeah, we've got one of those. But they're actually complicated. They're really complicated documents that have a huge impact on your rights, potentially. And so I really like to sit down with all the founders in a meeting and go through it and be like, okay, this just in a conversation. Because I think if you start out with those conversations first, it's really going to make a difference. Because the value, you hope you put it in, honestly, you hope you put it in the drawer and you never pull it out. And if you start by having those tougher conversations to say, okay, what happens if someone leaves? What happens if someone isn't able to contribute as much for whatever reason, right? Like, what's going to happen then? So if you have those conversations, so I think that's good. So setting up that initial, how are we going to work together as founders? That's important. Legal structuring. Then the next thing, you're probably going to eventually need some people, right? You're either going to need employees, you're going to need independent contractors. So we help putting that documentation together, making sure the IP comes, that sort of stuff. Everyone's always worried about that. So that would be I call it a teams bucket. So dealing with your team. Then the next bucket, you're going to have to sell your stuff, right? Like whatever your stuff may be, if it's a service, if it's, if it's a widget of sorts, it doesn't matter. You're going to have some sort of, so you're going to need commercial agreements. So, or a pilot, let's say it's a brand new tech and you need to pilot it. So we help with that commercialization component, putting those documents together. And then there's a pretty good chance that you also, depending on what you're doing, if you're not bootstrapping, you're going to have to raise money. And so we help with doing equity raises. Or, I mean, sometimes people put money in too, right? Like just by a loan, a shareholder loan or anything like that. And then, at the beginning, everyone's friends. Like it's easy to just say, oh, just don't worry about it. The accountant will log it. Yeah, they will. But so anyway, we try and encourage people to put the documentation together for that. So yeah, raising money. And then the hope is that for some people, they're trying to build towards an exit. And some people aren't. It's interesting. I think in my mind, there's been a bit of a shift. It used to be you're supposed to have this hockey stick, right? You're supposed to build and flip. And some people aren't. That's totally legitimate. Yep. But I think, at least in my mind, I think now I often see wisdom in, okay, what are we building? Let's build this intentionally. And what do we want to build for? Do we want to build a legacy business that our family runs? Do we want to end up in the VC area where we are trying to build and sell? But getting those fundamentals right and building a good, solid business. Now I'm straying, right? That's not necessarily legal. Legal should support that, not drive it. But I think that's, anyway, we do focus on an exit if that is what you're interested in, the type of company you're interested in building. Then yeah, on the exit, we don't do IPOs. We're a small shop that requires a lot of bench strength. So, but an exit, you bet. All of us have done M&A in the past, so we still do some of that on the sell side.
Well, I'm going to put it up there, and good job bragging about yourself. Good job bragging.
Thanks, Jade.
I
tried.
Yeah, it was a pre-conversation, and she loves confetti, so it just works out that I can put it in there.
I do love a good celebration.
You brought some really good points up, and especially the beginning, and as somebody who's been there, who's exited companies, who's helped a lot of companies, and there's been some really ugly partner breakups, and some of them have absolutely destroyed companies, and some of them almost destroyed companies. And having those hard conversations that you say at the beginning, and having the right documentation, whether it be a shotgun or an understanding of what's going to happen if things don't go right, because people do leave. People need to pay their bills. They need to look after their families. They're maybe not as risk adverse, or they got caught up in the hype at the beginning and think it's going to be easy. Because one of the things I don't like about our ecosystem is we don't talk about the reality of entrepreneurship and how freaking hard it can be. So having these conversations is so important, and having that documentation is even more important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is important. And the conversation is more important than the document itself sometimes. Sometimes those conversations are the things that is when you're and it depends. It's really interesting. Like I always ask, have you guys worked together before? Right? Because oftentimes if you've worked together, you have a better sense of, how you work together. But sometimes, there was a real push, and I'm not sure if the push is as strong now, but to have co-founders. Like, go get a co-founder. So someone ends up with a co-founder that they don't that they've never worked with, they don't know. Like, you really got to sit down and hash things out. The other thing you had asked earlier, what is it that makes us different? I don't know if this makes us different, but it's really a point of focus for us, and that is on the educational piece. I think that, everything's supposed to be fast and efficient and quick. And I get all of that, right? But if you sit down and you get a 30-page document, just think of going to the bank, right? Who reads, like, oh, you get it and I feel that way. Or a lease, like you're going to lease a space and you get this document, like, and you think, oh my gosh. And it puts you, like, it puts you to sleep. Like, it's a tough slog. It's technical writing, but it still matters. So we spend a lot of time, again, I still think this conversation is important, right? To figure out, okay, do you know what you're signing? Like, we sort of set up a rule a long time ago that everybody who signs something that we've prepared knows what it says. Like, that's important to us. To make sure that you know what you're signing, so you know what's in there, and we try as best we can to make sure that occurs, right? People know what they're signing. That matters too. Sometimes everyone thinks it's standard, but it's not standard. That's not a thing. Like,
no, it's not.
Not a thing. No. So if someone tells you it's a standard document, you should read it. Like, it's not, that just means it's a common type of document. It doesn't mean all the terms are the same. They're different things.
It is, it's funny because I was, when we got our first big sale with Nathan's back in the day, and we do agree with you at Alberta Lady, like, so thank you for that comment.
Yeah, for sure.
We got our, from MLSE, so we did the Leafs, the Raptors, BMO Field, the soccer, right? And it was 300 and some pages long, and we look at each other, and we didn't have a lawyer yet, and we're like, okay, this is way over our head. we need legal now to look at this, because there's certain things in here, especially with, it's a different situation, like with logos and how we can use it and how we can't use it, and the legalities of what happens if we use it wrong. And, it obviously scared the snot out of us. And it's like, but I mean, I think that education is something that you touched on, which is so important. And even us at Peer Guidance, we worked with a firm here where we just did an office hours, and we sat in their office and said, hey, anybody needs any help and anything, come talk to us, because it's very difficult. You don't know. It's hard sometimes to find that advice, and sometimes you're scared to also make a call, because it's like, oh, I don't have $500 an hour to do this, and I don't want to do it. But people like yourself are out there that will have that quick conversation with a 15-minute or something, whatever it may be, to say, hey, yeah, you don't need this, and this is what you should do, and we can help you with it. And if you do, here's our services.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, sometimes it is, that's the other thing about, you're expected to know everything. And so eventually you kind of get afraid to ask questions sometimes. Yeah. And I don't mean just about legal, just generally, right? You're supposed to know, and then if not, you're supposed to be able to Google it and just know. But like, if you don't know the subject, if you're not a subject matter expert, even Google or whatever AI program that you're using, like, it's excellent, and it's often a great start. But it's okay not to, I guess what I'm trying to say is this: I think it's okay not to know. What's worse is sort of hiding. Like, I think you have to figure out what you don't know, and then figure out what the answer is. But that often involves saying, I don't know, I need some help here or there, right? And asking those questions. But there's often this, like, especially I find with entrepreneurs, there's an expectation that you're supposed to know everything about everything, right? You're supposed to be an expert in your technology. You're supposed to be an expert in legal. You're supposed to be an expert in business. You're supposed to be an expert in accounting. You're supposed to be an expert in HR. Well, I mean, that's not possible.
No, it's not.
It's too much.
No, yeah. And I mean, and that's one thing that I love about our Alberta ecosystem, is that there are lots of people that and you hear me say this a lot, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. You could say, hey, Jade, let's go for a coffee, and say, hey, I got this. You know what? I don't know, but I probably know somebody that can help you. And, maybe it's just a quick email that they'd be able to answer a question for you. And I mean, in the end, obviously, if it gets too in depth, there's going to be a cost to it, as there should be, because everybody has their own business, and has to make money. But we are there to help, and asking these questions early on is so important to a business, because you don't know anything, and I can guarantee you that somebody has gone through the problem that you're going through right now 1,000 times. and
Yeah.
and they might even be able to give you, hey, you know what, this is what I did, this is who I talked to. Give them a call, they'll make a warm introduction, and it'll help you along your way. And that's what I love about our community here.
Yeah, I do too. And you know what? As you were talking about this, I was just reminded that just recently I heard we often get focused on what did we learn and how do we figure things out? And I think that's like incredibly important, obviously. But I think we also need to take some time to let's get back to the confetti, to celebrate some of our successes. Like I think that matters too. And I was reminded, yeah, there we go. See, I was reminded of that lately. I was like, we were so busy learning and solving and fixing. It's nice to take a minute or two and just celebrate some success as well.
Oh, Hunter, literally, that is why I started telling like it is over 8 years ago.
Really?
We
Okay.
were like, one of the things that I saw was that, why aren't we don't have to be American. We don't have to boast and brag, and it's all about me, but we have to be a little more not Canadian, and be a little more celebratory, and you know what? We are great, and our company is good, and it is hard. And I remember when we got MLSE, I was like, I couldn't even believe it. Right. Like we're in Toronto, and I was like, how are we going to get these guys? Like, seriously, we're a little company, and it was done. And you're like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
it changed our company for the rest of the time until we sold it. That one day changed the rest of our company, and we
So what
celebrated.
what was it? What was it that changed? Like what? I'm curious. And obviously it was a big contract, but what
Yeah.
else? What was? Did it? How did it change things?
It opened up the Ontario market, because everybody wanted that hot dog, that MLSE, and the Air Canada Center and the Leafs and all them were selling. So that was huge. It also, they wanted more SKUs. So we had like 3 SKUs. And by the time we were done, we had 6, which we were now selling into the Keg and Boston Pizzas, and
Mm,
all different, footlongs. It changed everything. It helped us grow to the point where we were then open listed at all the food services in Ontario, and honestly, Ontario is the biggest market. So
yeah.
that helped us open up Quebec and the Maritime. So you celebrate that. I got goosies right now thinking about,
Mm.
like, walking out of that meeting, and we're looking at each other and going, is this did that just happen? Like, again, but that's why you
Right.
celebrate. We talk here, we come on telling it like it is. You go on any other show, you talk about the wins, and we still don't do that enough. There'll be a little
Yeah.
bit going on, and Bobby just sold her company, and now 3 weeks later no one's talking about it. Like, we got to do a better job
Yeah.
of celebrating our wins
Yeah. I agree. I agree. That's
in
good.
in a big way.
2026. We're gonna celebrate.
Oh my God. Again, I'm talking with Karen, the founder of Legal Sneakers. The website's in the chat. Click on it, and it'll take you directly to their website for more information. So let's talk about what is next. Maybe a little short term, what's next for you, Karen, and maybe long term.
Yeah. Sure. Well, we actually just got a permit. We're gonna create some new space for us. So some a physical space. So we still work remotely, and we're building out an office space, which I'm super excited about. So that's a 2026 item that we've been working on for a while, and now it's well underway. So I've been told I should keep the world updated with Snap. I'm not so good.
Hey,
I feel
celebrate,
I
talk,
feel old.
celebrate.
But yeah. So the step by step construction. So anyway, building out some office space. So excited about that. And And yeah, that's great. And if there's just not enough time to tell the whole story about why that confetti is so important. Anyway, so that's one of the things. And we're also we're gonna start growing a little bit more, working on doing more exits. So actually, kind of targeting that work to get back into doing a bit more of the transactional work, and yeah, and just reconnect. One of the big things that I'm working on, Jade, is just reconnecting with the community. Right? Like, it's so interesting because I used to be out there all the time, everywhere. And then honestly, like, COVID hit, and I don't know, just life, I think. And I sort of wasn't as active in the community as I once was. And just, that's another big goal, is just to be reconnected to people. And this is, I mean, meeting you, then I get to meet people like you, right? And you think, oh, this is terrific, right? Had I not gone to that summit, I wouldn't be here today. So it's funny how just getting out there and meeting people, it just opens up opportunities, and you feel a bit more connected somehow. So I would say those are kind of the three areas.
Well, I love it, and I think that's great, and I think it's important, right? Like, even Keith, thanks for the question. We will get to it here. I tag Karen on the chat on LinkedIn. She will answer it, and we'll have a conversation about equity building and things along those lines, because that's a whole 30-minute show on its own.
Sure, yeah, we can come back.
we can come back. So thanks for that question, Keith. And it's so true, right? Like, you're always evolving. Every company is doing it, and even the companies that help companies are always evolving and offering services. And that generally leads to my last question, and it is probably the saddest part of my Wednesday, because that means the conversation is coming to an end. And again, I love this. I love Wednesdays. So here's a question: if you have one piece of advice for an entrepreneur or a founder, what would that be?
Yeah, this is, I used to say one word: perseverance. Keep going, right? Like, it is a rough road, and I think you're sort of you're supposed to put on a bit of a brave face. And I'm not saying take away the brave face, but I think behind that brave face, often there's some challenges. So I used to say perseverance, but I think actually, I think I'll say perseverance, but also celebrate your wins. Like, there's going to be a lot of focus on getting advice and all this sort of stuff, but take some time to celebrate those wins, because along the journey, that any kind of journey that is hard, you should take some time to celebrate those wins too. And be proud of them, right? Like, yeah, be proud of it. You've worked hard. Like, so that's what I would say. But generally, I used to say, keep going.
Keep going. Well, I mean, it's all part of it, right? Like, you do have to take that time to celebrate the wins. You do have to take that time, just maybe sometimes reflect, sometimes cry, sometimes, you're going to get punched in the face a lot of times. But more importantly, on that, perseverance and keep going and celebration, it's also a journey you don't have to take alone. And make sure, as you said, get out there, talk to people, ask for help, but be there. We've got such an inclusive community and so many incredible people. I should probably just have a show where I just sit there for 30 minutes, like the TED when they were naming names there, and just say all the names of our community, of all the incredible people, because that's what makes us unique, and that's what's making us successful and helping other people be successful. And I can't even tell you, how awesome it is. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I think that's great. I think what you're doing is wonderful. It's really good to be on the show, and just for you to have people having real conversations, and it's good. Did my homework, watched some of the YouTube videos.
Well, that's good. But I mean, it's an easy conversation, and that's what makes it fun. We laugh, we talk, we share. There's no stress about it. It's live. If our dog barks, if you're, anybody, it's awesome. Like, and I love it,
Yeah.
and I love when people like yourself come on and share your knowledge and everything that you do in the community. Thank you so much for all of that, and yeah, I mean, it's, it is. I appreciate the kind words that you shared about me, because I do love this. I do feel passion for it. I do love meeting people like yourself and talking about that. So
Yeah, that shines through.
awesome. Well, you know what? I'm going to say thank you so much for coming on, Karen. We've got our confetti. It's the first time I used it live. Oh my goodness. And yeah, and I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Next week we're going to have Nick Betty come on with 10X. But yeah, Karen, thank you so much for coming on here. If anybody wants any more information about legal sneakers, please click on the link in the comments section. And yeah, I look forward to running across you at some events.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, thank you very much, Jade.
All right, everybody, have a great